Originally, I'm from Massachusetts, the Boston area, but I live in DC down here. I've been here for a while. My film background is um, I got my bachelor's degree in photography, fine art photography, and then I went and got a master's in history. And somehow I realized if you put those two things together, you ended up being a documentary filmmaker. Well, biggest influences, I think off the top of my mind, I'd have to say two. One was Ken Burns, simply because when I was studying history, his film The Civil War came on, and I realized, that's something I can do. And then I guess beyond that, I would have to say Elliot Morris. Simply, I just love his style, and I love his just different approach to documentary. So those two kind of things together kind of equal a Mark Fastoso film. The hardest part about making Jeremiah was figuring out how to get close to the character of a person who had just passed away. And it really came down to getting the trust of his family and his friends and everyone who knew him. And as one of his sons said to me, he goes, one of the things you never want to hear, besides I'm from the government and I'm here to help, is, hey, I'm a filmmaker and I want to tell your story. And so it took a little bit of time to get their trust and to open up to me. But when they finally did, we really found the heart of the story. I really want viewers to watch Jeremiah and feel like now that we're far from the Vietnam War, we can actually maybe look back a little bit and see who some of the heroes from that war are, and understand that what they still have to tell us. And I mean, I went to paint a portrait of Jeremiah Denton, and I ended up really painting a portrait of him and his family and the men around him, and particularly his wife. I mean, I had no clue that his wife was just as big of a hero as he was, and she was instrumental in creating the POW MIA Black Flag, that whole movement. It was really the wives that did that. So I think there's a lot to take from the heroism of that period, and I just want everyone to come to it at their own individual space and take from it. I have a hobby, which is like historical gaming with miniatures, right? And it's kind of weird, but when you watch Jeremiah, we had to figure out how to put people in the Hanoi Hilton prison. And on an Alabama public television budget, no way we're flying to Hanoi. So how did I solve that? Well, all the images you see in the film of the hallways and the windows and the light coming through the doors is all a miniature we built. It was 18 inches tall by 24 inches long, and that kind of comes from this fun hobby I have. 50 years ago this May, on ABC News, a POW appeared. He was haggard, he was beaten, and the Vietnamese were interrogating him. And they asked him what he thought of the Vietnamese War, and he said, well, I don't know what's happening, but whatever my government's doing is the right thing. And he obviously had been in distress, and to say that took a lot of courage. But when he was doing it, he seemed disoriented, he was kind of blinking, and the government looked at that and they realized he was blinking in Morse code. He was blinking out the word torture. And that just scratches the surface of this man's story of how he had to lead in impossible circumstances, and how his wife, who was back home, had to figure out how to get their 7 children through adolescence without their dad through the 60s. She was a leader, he was a leader. It's a great story, and everyone should go and see it.